The views or opinions expressed on Ann Arbor Inclusive do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the City of Ann Arbor and the Commission on Disability Issues. For more information about the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, please visit a2gov.org/disability resources.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive. I'm Zach Damon. We have a wonderful show for you today as Ann Arbor Mayor Christopher Taylor joins us in studio. Well, let's get right to it, shall we? And Mayor Taylor, one of the things that just really fascinates me about you is that you just didn't run out of the blue. I mean, you spent your time within the city government serving on Ann Arbor City Council for 3 years and then were elected mayor in November of 2014. So has the transition been what you expected?
It kind of has. It's always odd, making the transition from council member to mayor. But like you said, I've been on council for quite some time. I had been working for many years closely with Mayor Hiefje. And so I think I had a pretty good idea of what the job would be like. When you show up and it is still different.
Mm-hmm.
It does take a little while to adopt that sort of self-perception of being the mayor.
Sure.
But I'm getting there.
Yeah. Now, for those that don't know, what does a mayor do? I mean, can you put that in a nutshell for us, and just for people that don't know?
Absolutely. Well, Ann Arbor's form of government is it's called a weak mayor, strong administrator. So if you think about it as a corporation, I'm not the CEO, I'm the chair of the board. Ann Arbor has 722 employees, and everyone, with the exception of the city attorney, reports to the city administrator. Okay. The mayor, on the other hand, is really the one elected official who's elected by the city in its entirety.
Sure.
The mayor's job is to provide political leadership, to chair the council meetings, to nominate members of boards and commissions, and also to serve as head of state and foreign minister, the person who represents the city, whether it's to the university or businesses or the like that wish to invest in Ann Arbor, or community groups that have a concern and don't quite know where to go. They come to the mayor.
Sure. No, that's great. And so with that and all the titles that kind of go with being the mayor, right, what are some of the goals that you have set for this coming year?
Sure. When I ran for mayor, I ran very much on a platform that I think we're generally speaking in the city doing the right things. That Ann Arbor is going in the right direction, and that we have an optimistic future. When I ran, and I think we're continuing along with this, government's fundamental job, local government's fundamental job, is to improve the basic services that local government has the pleasure and obligation to provide,
sure,
but also to enhance quality of life for residents. And so those two broad sets of goals are what I'm looking to do. With specificity, I think we're focusing on certainly streets and sidewalks during this upcoming year. We're going to be hopefully doing a lot more in making Ann Arbor roads better, because that's a real concern that we have. Also, too, on the quality of life side, we're constantly looking at placemaking, making sure the downtown has the character that we all love, but also remains vibrant and active. That our parks are up to our aspirations, things along those lines.
Now, you talked, a lot too about just making Ann Arbor accessible, having accessible sidewalks, accessible roads.
Absolutely.
So, with this being a show, Ann Arbor Inclusive, about accessibility, what does an accessible city look like to you?
Well, I'm both, Ann Arbor is, I think, an interesting place that we can be proud of many of the things that we're doing, but also have, a full and sort of mature acknowledgement that there's still lots more to do before we're truly satisfied. And this is an area, I think, where we have that duality of pride and also aspiration.
Definitely.
I think that Ann Arbor as a city, understands that the infrastructure is there for everyone, that people of every ability have a right to participate, and it's that the community as a whole is so much improved when everyone does have that opportunity to participate.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I personally, as a resident that has grown up here and lives here, I would agree with that philosophy.
All right.
And it was interesting because we were talking a little bit before the show, and I had mentioned to you that one of the guests had mentioned something to me that I thought was very interesting, and I just wanted to get your response.
Sure.
As the mayor. And when I asked her, I said, well, do you feel like this is a great city specifically for people with disabilities? And she looked at me and she said, no. And I was extremely taken back. I said, well, why not? And she said, well, Zach, I feel like Ann Arbor sort of treats residents with disabilities, you know, like they're a product rather than a person. Now, that was her opinion, but I wanted to know what your response is to that.
Sure. Well, I guess the first is, you know, disappointment that someone's aspirations and goals aren't met, and that they felt sort of disconnected from the city. It's certainly that's not our intent. You know, I think our intent in the municipal organization and the community as a whole is to indeed be inclusive. Where we stumble for want of ignorance or resources,
Sure.
You know, for want of rather knowledge and resources, you know, I think I know that I like to hear about it so that we can improve.
Now, you've lived in Ann Arbor for over 20 years.
That's right.
So, kind of shifting away, what would you say is your favorite event during the year to attend? I know that you've been very involved with festivals. Would you say that's your favorite?
I love festivals. There's no question about it. It's such an Ann Arbor. It's an archetypal Ann Arbor event. But I think that you know, I have a very warm and persistent spot in my heart for the Burns Park Players.
Yeah.
I have a music background in vocal performance. I went to the music school here at the university, and have been a participant in the Burns Park Players for a number of years. My wife is in the Players as well. My kids have gone through it, and it is, in addition to being, I think, a pretty good theatrical experience for a neighborhood organization, it is such an incredible community event. People, you know, in the dead of winter, neighbors getting together on a project of common purpose. You know, you build relationships, and that simply would not be possible otherwise. You know, I honestly would never have run for office if I hadn't done Burns Park Players, because I wouldn't.
Really?
I wouldn't have felt like I'm a part of the community in a way that that I did after being involved in the show.
Sure.
It's really true. You know, scores, you know, hundreds of people are involved putting on this production of a silly musical in a middle school theater with about 100 elementary school kids playing along. It's just great.
No, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And to have that be an experience that sort of led you kind of into this path, I think is wonderful too.
Right.
So being a performer,
Right.
What was your reaction to sort of the news with, you know, the local theater scene and some of the things that have happened and some of the unfortunate events? I mean, do you hope that there can be, you know, kind of a blossoming again of professional theater within Ann Arbor?
Oh, I definitely hope so, and I do know that a number of theaters are, you know, doing their utmost to get off the ground. I know Theater Nova is working it. I know Kickshaw Theater is working it. These groups are you know, not exactly trying to fill the void of Performance Network, because they're different sorts of organizations, but I think they recognize, as do the people in the network, recognize that people in Ann Arbor, you know, love theater. And I really am very hopeful that someday we will have an equity house back up and running in Ann Arbor, and it'll do great things.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I wanted to touch too on, you know, what separates Ann Arbor, I would say, from all the rest of the cities in the United States.
Right.
Because, you know,
high quality municipal government, I think.
There we go. I think
exactly.
So. There you
go.
go.
I knew you were going to say
What
that.
a great response.
Thank
My
you.
God, I couldn't have said it better myself. But I think, you know, it's interesting because, you know, you see a lot of articles in national publications. I mean, Time Magazine rated Ann Arbor is one of the top cities in the U.S. to sort of be and raise a family, and a variety of others.
Right.
But if I were a person who wasn't from here, but I was highly considering relocating my family or myself to Ann Arbor, what would you say to me as a reason to do so?
Yeah, I'd say, well, come on in. You know, Ann Arbor has a tremendous quality of life. It's bound. It's you know, it's geographically accessible. That is to say, you know, it's relatively small. The transportation network is, you know, hopefully always improving, but also very present and available. We in the city are so, you know, dedicated to our parks, dedicated to education. The economy of Ann Arbor is quite good, and, you know, even through the depths of the Great Recession, was nowhere near as negatively affected as elsewhere.
Yeah.
We are so lucky to have the University of Michigan here. I mean, it's not a question of luck; it's
Sure.
history.
Sure.
But the university provides great ballast for us. You know, we have a factory that is never moving, never shutting down, never slowing down, and it's a factory that is producing good and wonderful things all the time. It's a factory that you know, produces education and people who are interesting, and I think it enhances our sense of community, and I think that yeah, Ann Arbor has a spirit to it. We in Ann Arbor focus on ourselves, not to the exclusion of others, but I think we have as a community a great pride, and I think that that is part of what makes us get along well together, and part of the thing that helps us welcome people to Ann Arbor. It's easy to come to Ann Arbor and feel a part of things,
Sure.
and I think that more people should do so.
Yeah. Are you going to be attending the Ann Arbor Art Fair this summer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite section of the art fair, or is it?
Well, you know, I work right on Main Street. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah.
Ann Arbor as mayor is a part-time job, and so I'm a lawyer, and I work at Hooper Hathaway on Main Street. And so, you know, I love walking up and down Main Street, my ordinary haunts, and seeing the changes that come with the art fair.
Sure. One of the other things too that I really wanted to ask you, and this might be a tough question now, seeing as you know you're still sort of newer in the mayor office, but what is it that you want to be remembered for in terms of being a mayor?
You know, that's a good question. I tend not to sort of you know, think like that. I tend to focus on you know, I try to think strategically and do, I think, for the city, but I guess but I don't sort of get hooked up on legacy. I guess, but nevertheless, trying not to avoid the question, I would hope that people would reflect up and, you know, remember my mayorship as one that was open and engaged, where, you know, I felt it was you know, inclusive to people who you know, who agreed to me and disagreed with me.
Sure.
That I treated people with dignity and friendliness, even as I disagreed with them earnestly on policy.
Sure.
I'd like to see you know, infrastructure improved, basic services improved. I think the city's doing a lot of good things in this direction, and I hope that you know, when my time as mayor has come, that people will reflect and think it so.
Definitely. Another question I had for you too.
Yeah.
I mean, for those residents, you know, with disabilities that are kind of wondering, you know, what can we see in the future, and you know, what kind of message, you know, does the city of Ann Arbor have for them? I mean, to the viewers of Ann Arbor Inclusive and to the community of disability in Ann Arbor, I mean, what would you like them to know about the city? Because again, you know, that comment that we referred to earlier about, you know, product versus person,
Right.
You know, what do you have to say to them? Because again, that hurt me as well, and of course, that others feel that way. So,
Right.
so what do you have to say?
I mean, I guess I would say that me personally, and I believe the municipal organization and the community views persons of, you know, all ability, you know, ranges,
Sure.
to be full and proper participants in society, in the community, and all the things that we do. I also too would you know, recognize and acknowledge that we don't, you know, always do things as we ought, and
Sure.
I think that when people you know, who have disabilities observe that, although it's hard to give us the benefit of the doubt all the time, to give, you know, people benefit of the doubt all the time, I would hope that they would,
Right.
at least the first or second or third time.
Right.
You know, I think that the city you know, always tries to do its best, and when we're not doing our best, you know, I myself want to know about it. The city, I think, wants to know about it so that we can do better.
And I think that accountability speaks volumes not only for yourself, but for the city and how they are progressing. And so I want to highlight too the great things that have been happening, you know, with the bus system and the great improvements you guys have made with them. So can you talk a little bit about those?
Sure. The bus system, you know, the AAATA is undertaking a great expansion after the passage of the millage back in 2014, and so that's, I think, outstanding for everyone, people that, you know, need to use the bus, and, you know, honestly, people that don't.
Yeah.
It's just tremendous. The city itself, we have a lot of initiatives going on, particularly, I think, in our park system. Where we are making sure that, you know, wherever we can improve accessibility, that we do so. We have working with the Rotary Club on a wonderful universal access park in Gallup Park that's going to be up
Sure.
and running,
That's
and
awesome.
it's going to be a good thing.
Oh yeah. And can you talk? Yeah. So talk a little bit about that park, because you and I kind of met face to face a little bit for
That's
the very first time at that unveiling.
Yes, indeed.
And so can you talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, well, this is, the Rotary Club was looking for a landmark project in the city, and this is certainly an area that we had identified as being in need.
Sure.
And so I don't have the precise figure, but
Sure.
I'll say it in but I think that they're contributing approximately $100,000 to the project.
That's great.
We as a city are working with it as well. We've gotten, I believe, grant from the state government to make this very important, and I think certainly within the city, unique playground to reality.
That's wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
because in the past, I know personally, going to parks and being outdoors has always been something that I've really enjoyed.
Right.
But it was always somewhat of a challenge. You have the jogging paths that are usually fine, to navigate. But then when you want to get to, some of the hiking areas, those can be a challenge. And then some of even the play structures in the past, were a challenge. But with that new park and that new project going forward, it seemed to me that is not going to be a problem.
I certainly think that's the design intent, is to make
Sure.
it sure that absolutely everybody can get to it and participate in it.
Sure, that's wonderful. Now, I wanted to ask you too, the Ann Arbor Film Festival is going to be coming up. Are you going to be attending?
I love the film festival. I don't know exactly my schedule, but I certainly hope so.
Yeah, no, it's to me, it's one of the most amazing events in Ann Arbor, because
Yeah.
it's one of the oldest, independent film festivals in the country.
That's
so.
right. I was there last year, and I've been there many times in the past, and it's just tremendous. It's one of the exciting things about again, the cycle of the seasons. When the film festival comes back, that summer's beginning.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, what was your reaction when a bunch of the films kind of came to Ann Arbor and started doing the filming and doing the on-location things? Are you in support of that?
Oh, you mean with like on sets?
Yeah.
I really wish that we had, we continued to have supports for the film industry. In all full disclosure, my wife is an actor and has participated in a number of these films, and so it's very personally, it's a personal thing of importance in our family.
Sure.
I think that it adds a certain vitality and sort of snazz to a place when a major movie is filming there. People who aren't involved in the industry, have a sense of pride,
Sure.
and it makes them feel a little better about their home.
Right.
So in addition to whatever ancillary benefits are associated with the trades and actors and the like who are working in association with the film, I think there is that extra additional community benefit that probably hasn't been taken into account.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's hope that they do provide more work, because I'm an actor as well.
That's right. I hope so.
Hopefully we can work together.
There you go. Exactly.
So, if you could too, because you and I have spoken a little bit about this, and it's kind of interesting. So there have been, townies, if you will, the Ann Arbor residents who have really expressed their opinion about sort of, how much expansion there has been in Ann Arbor, and how much newer, real estate that's been building, and of course
Sure.
the high rises and the new dormitories, things like that. But talk about why change is good and
Yeah.
why you believe in it.
Sure. Well, change is inevitable. So I guess one thing I would say is that the nostalgia about the city that we had is, I have it too. I've been here since 1985 for the most part, and so I imagine and remember borders on State Street and so forth. But the sorts of change, the growth, I think, is reasonable growth is good for the city. I think the city's spirit. It adds to vitality. It brings new people in. It makes our downtown and our other areas a destination. It enlivens us.
Sure.
So I think from a community perspective, it's important. From the municipal organization perspective, it's critical. Broadly speaking, our city's revenues are going up at 1% annually over the long term. Our costs are going up at 2% annually over the long term. Unless we, those are the incremental numbers. Unless we have growth within the city, the current services that we provide residents are simply not sustainable. I don't think the residents want a municipal organization that shrinks in terms of its offerings. I think they want us to improve the offerings that we have, and indeed to expand them.
Sure.
That improvement and expansion is simply not possible without moderate growth. It needs to be proper. It needs to be done in a manner that's consistent with our character.
Sure.
We have about a third of the downtown, by way of example, are historic districts, which are never going to change, and so I think that provides a real character ballast for us.
Sure.
But we need to, I think, accept that there is going to be some growth and recognize that it has benefits in addition to trade-offs.
Sure. And as you pointed out, it's just sort of a natural evolution, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily change the culture of the city. It just sort of naturally goes with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So really quick,
Yeah.
your favorite place to go in Ann Arbor? Like say, you know, you're leaving the office,
Yeah.
you want to go get a bite to eat, where do you go?
You know, I love Asian food. So,
Okay.
you know, pretty much any Asian restaurant I'll go to Tamokan. That's one of my favorite spots. I love
Yeah.
Slurping Turtle.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's a great
yes,
place.
you know, Ari Rang out, you know, in Oak Valley.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, my favorite grocery store to go to is the Galleria on Packard.
Is that right? I've never been there.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's a Korean grocer. It's
Okay.
beautiful. It's clean. People there are very friendly. It's like wonderful aisles with all sorts of
Oh my gosh.
great. You know, I wasn't raised in the culture,
Sure.
and so it's just, you know, great wonders and mysteries there.
Yeah, sure.
And they're eager to help you out. So
Cool.
check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll definitely have to check it out. I've heard great things.
Yeah.
Have you been to the new P.F. Chang's? It's in sort of the Briarwood complex.
Oh no, not yet.
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe someday soon.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much, folks. I want to thank you so much for Christopher Taylor joining me on Ann Arbor Inclusive. We definitely hope you enjoyed the broadcast, and as always, stay awesome, Ann Arbor.